farmer at Cheesewater Farm was really grumpy. Really grumpy. He just hated people walking through, he hated kids. So, and I used to go down every year, or a couple of times a year sometimes, and he'd always start shouting if he saw you walking across his farm, "Get out of my farm, go on, clear off." And a couple of times he'd come out with a gun under his arm, a shotgun. Oh yeah, he never fired it at me, but by the time I got there, this time as I went down by myself, the first time I hitchhiked down by myself, I had to decide whether to go through his farmyard without waking his dogs up, or go down the side of the valley and cross the stream. But it had been raining, and I knew that the stream was going to be very muddy on either side, and I didn't really want to arrive at the cottage just covered in mud.
How wide is that stream?
Well, it could be about 3 meters, but it depends how much rain there'd been. It wasn't fully winter, so it was quite low with water, but it was very shallow in lots of places, and so the water would spill into the grass on either side, and then it would just get really muddy. And also there were cows that went down there to drink, so they keep making the ground really muddy and so on as well. So yeah, I'd be brave and go through the farmyard. So I didn't, simply because I didn't want to get muddy feet. I didn't mind going through the woods, but you know, when you're tired, you've been travelling for several hours and it's dark and it's getting the dark clouds coming in above and tromping through the woods is a bit difficult with a big bag on your back and a guitar.
And a guitar.
And a guitar.
Wow.
So you had to get through 3 fields, and always there was this bull in one of the fields.
Bull?
A bull. Because he used to breed cattle as well, the farmer. So sometimes there were cows in one field and a bull in another field, and the bull was really cranky. It just didn't like people. So you'd hear it snorting and scratching its foot and things, oh God. But you can't see it in the dark, it's a big black bull in the dark. And you know, trying to sort of get, you stop at the gate and you listen, can I hear it snorting? Is the bull in this field? Is it in the next one? And you just have to sort of cross your fingers and try to get through the fields as quickly as possible without falling over. A great big heavy thing. It seems really extraordinary thinking back now. I can feel what the earth was like, the stony track I was going along in these fields, and the kind of smell of the damp grass, the smell of the cattle. And when you're at the road, there's just one lamp there, hanging on the side of an old garage. And it was always alight. I can't remember a time when it had ever been turned off, even during daylight, year after year after year. And I was told they never changed the bulb. It just, because they didn't turn it on and off, it just stayed there in a lit condition. And it was always at night. It was always surrounded by gnats and bugs and flies and moths and things. It was like a little rave party all around this lamp. But that was the only light at the beginning of the track. And then when you walk away from that, you're in total darkness. If there's no moon, that's it. You've got nothing else. I didn't have a torch. No. I had some candles in my bag. I became quite good, I think, at getting my night vision. Anyway, got through the fields, and then I reminded myself there's a long, low tunnel of trees, very low, and they're probably only about 3.5 feet, 4 feet at the most off the ground. So if you're fairly tall or you're carrying something, it's quite difficult. You've got to hunch over because there are bits of bramble sticking out of it, and odd twigs and broken bits of wood on the floor. And that's probably about, I don't know, 300 meters long or something. And it's just absolutely pitch black in there. And I always forgot which angle that bit of path took. Because quite often I'd realised I just walked into the bank on one side or got hit by a branch or something. So always getting scratched and getting brambles caught in my hair. But when you knew when you're getting to the end of that sort of tunnel of trees, because you could hear the water from the stream. So you're going uphill slightly there. And the water was running down past you. And Ivor, who lived in the mill, which is just near the stream, had made a bridge there out of slate, and it was only about 2 feet off the ground, no, 2.5 feet off the ground, but it was enough if the stream was full, it was enough to get across Then you walk through these dilapidated cottages. There were 2 cottages on each side of the track, and 2 of them were empty. One had a hermit, one guy, Don the Hermit, a chap that just lived by himself. He didn't like people either. It's pretty funny people. And if you said, "Morning, Don," he'd no, like that.
Yeah.
But I always said good morning to him. Eventually he did talk to me once. He didn't smile, but he talked to me. And one of the other cottages was lived in by goats. And if they heard somebody coming, because their hearing is very good and their vision's very good, they'd stick their head out of the window. And if you're not expecting it, in the dark, this white face appears with its great big eyes and horns. Jesus, it's spooky. It's really spooky. But you walk through between those cottages, away from the stream, and you start going up towards the woods, and then you're approaching Butler's cottage. And as if all of that wasn't spooky enough, the cottage is in complete darkness, because there's no electricity, so there won't be any lights on, or there shouldn't be any lights on. Should I say, if there's a light on, then you've got a problem. There's somebody in there.
Yeah.
The door was never locked.
Never looked.
No. You go around to the back of the cottage, and it's a cobbled yard, cobblestones out at the back. Go out there and wash your clothes or hang clothes up or something like that. Then you've got to get into the cottage, and that's very spooky as well. So I always would open the door, push it open, and just say, "Hi, it's me, I'm here," hoping that there's nobody in there. But the first thing you do outside is get your box of candles out. And usually there were torches there. So you would, if I was there, every time I left, I'd make sure there was a fresh battery next to the torch. So the next person coming in could definitely have some light. So you make sure there's candles, matches, dry wood for the fire, and tea. Always tea, talking of which. So yeah, make sure that people can get light, make sure there's oil for the lamps. So that if somebody does arrive there wet and tired, they can immediately get the kettle on and make a hot drink and that sort of thing. I don't know if you know the Aga system. It's a big iron oven, and you can have them, these days you can have them run by electricity or oil or gas, but there was an earlier version of that called a ray burner. You just put wood into the oven, wood into the burner, and it heats the ovens. So you've got a hot oven and a medium oven, and you've got a hot burner for a kettle and a medium burner as well for simmering things. But there was also a 2-ring, I think it's called it's a belling or something, and it's a little bit like your gas cooker. Except it only took big bottles of gas, so you had to carry big bottles of gas back from the village. But we always made sure, whoever was there, that there was gas. And so on. So you could turn the little gas cylinder on and make a hot drink. So yeah, as soon as you get into the kitchen, you pop your stuff down, you light a candle, you find out where the torch is, and then you can go around the house checking the rooms. And if everything's okay, nothing's fallen down, the ceilings are still up and that sort of thing, you can start putting the oil lamps on, and then you light the fire. By that time, hopefully the kettle's boiled, and you can have a hot drink, and the fire's beginning to pick up, and you think, in the lamplight flickering away with shadows all around the walls, I think, I'm here. And that was the most fantastic feeling. Then you plonk down in the rocking chair by the fire, or in a big old comfy armchair or something, and you just sit there and sip your tea and listen to the world outside, the wind and the trees. Yeah, there was no mains water, no mains electricity. So there was a well down by the stream, you had to cross the stream, and somebody had managed to find access to a well and built a little hut over it, so you could open the door with a bucket, whatever, or 2 buckets, and get water from that.
And have to carry to the
And then
cottage.
carry them back up to the cottage, yeah. But at a later time, in fact the sort of time that I was there, when I was 14, somebody had managed to find out that there was an underground spring further up in the mountain, further up in the hills, and they managed to put some pipes in and run one of the pipes down to Butler's cottage and the other one down to the mill. But you had to run, if they hadn't been used for a long while, those pipes, you had to run the water for a while because it would come out brown, because you get bits of silt in there and the pipe might go a little bit rusty or something, so you had to run it for a few minutes till it ran clear. But the water was absolutely, it was like a sort of champagne of waters. It was really pure mineral water because it filtered down through the rocks for miles and miles and miles, taking all the impurities out. It's like sparkling water. It's really, really beautiful to drink. You could feel it reviving you. Sometimes you could just, if you had a great big pan, you could heat water on the Rayburn cooker, and there was a bathtub that you could put into the sitting room by the fire, and you pour the hot water into that and then top it up with cold water, and you sit by the fire in this hot tub of water. Yeah, it's made of metal. And when it's empty, you can move it quite easily. Yeah. And you can sit in it in the water and have a wash.
That's nice.
Yeah. If you can be bothered. But usually, I would, excuse me everybody, I'd go outside into the courtyard at the back and strip off and have 2 or 3 buckets of water, which I'd just take a deep breath and then pour it over me. It's freezing cold, absolutely freezing cold. But immediately, you know, it's like if you jump in the sea, suddenly like that, and then you get that flush of warmth again, the body responds, tries to reheat you. So you shake off all this cold water, think, wow, that's amazing. And then you get a bit of soap and splash around and that kind of stuff, and you get another bucket of water. It's just like a dog shaking itself.
Oh,
And I probably had quite long hair at the time as well, so. So yeah, that was my shower, my daily shower.
Shower.
So the morning after arriving, you sort of look around the place in daylight, make sure everything's okay, you air all the bed, take the sheets and things out of plastic bags where they've been sort of, keep the moths out of them. Just keep the fires ticking over overnight so the place stayed warm. I think I probably slept in the rocking chair the first night because I was so tired. And wake up and the room's still warm. And the lovely thing with those fires is they weren't big fires, but they're really effective. Every room had a fireplace in it. All the bedrooms, because that's the only way you could get the place warm. But downstairs, it was slate floors. And after about 10 minutes of the fire being alight, the slate would warm up. And it was lovely warm under your feet. And so on, yeah. But in the morning when you wake up, it's glorious. You just open the front door and step outside, and you've just got trees and trees and trees as far as you can see. Looking down the valley, you can't quite see the stream, but you can hear it, depending on which way the wind is blowing. And you can't see another property. Just very occasionally, if the mill has got, Helighan Mill has got its fire going, you'll just see curling smoke coming up somewhere through the trees. You just think, oh, Brenda and Ivor are awake or they're home, and pop down and have a cup of tea with them. You're isolated, but if you maybe a certain kind of personality, you don't feel alone. It's I've never felt lonely, but it's you can be by yourself and just enjoy being there. So I would sit and read, play on the guitar, walk through the woods and visit other cottages further out where I knew some of the people that lived there. And I'd go into the village. First thing I'd do would be walk around the harbour, just check that everything's... It's funny, some of the things you do. If you go back to places frequently, you kind of get your bearings, just see what's happening in the harbour. All the fishermen, yeah, they're still going out today. The little cafes or restaurants and so on, the post office, just to make sure they're all there. And I used to go into some of the restaurants and get some work, doing washing up in the evenings and that sort of thing. Or go to the farmers and see, I need a few days work because I need some money to get some stuff. And they say, yeah, all right, and come and pick some potatoes or clear up the farmyard or come and help me milk the cows or do whatever it was. Yeah. From 14 years old, I used to go down every year, so probably throughout my teens pretty much. And then they get to know you and say, well, if you're coming back next year, let me know and we'll get you some work. So that was always handy. So in a way, it could be seen as a hard life, but it never felt like that to me. It was a very sort of calm adventure. You're doing things which the other kids from school weren't doing. Yeah, I wanted to be independent. And living in the woods was just absolutely fantastic. And at night you could hear the owls hooting and screeching as they were hunting through the woods. And that could be a bit spooky as well. You're sitting in bed reading Lord of the Rings by candlelight with the wind or the rain, creating this sort of backdrop of nature, howling winds or the owls screeching, and you're reading about all these sort of monstrous beings in Lord of the Rings, with the flickering candlelight and so on. And it's really atmospheric, really atmospheric. But I was aware at the time that it was so thrilling to be able to do that. But the woods of Heligan House. You tell me to shut up, darling, if I'm talking too much.
Yeah, shut up now.
The woods were stunning because Sir John Tremaine had brought all these amazing exotic plants back. So every day I'd go into the woods, pick up fallen wood. I didn't cut down any trees, any wood that's come off the trees, and cut it up into logs, and then you put it in the wood store to dry.